answer.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. That's 2 weeks in a row, which is good. This is... Hey everybody, welcome back to the Manufacturing Alliance podcast. I just wanted to hear myself. Hold on. There you go. So it is live. That's proof that it's live. We're a little bit out of practice because we haven't done this for a few weeks. But we're back, and we're back to every single week. I'm your host, Tony DeMakis from Alliance Specialties and Laser Sales, and we are your mold-making professionals that don't build molds. Yep. We do all the stuff that you guys don't have time to do. So polishing, laser welding, laser engraving, hot runner repair, PMs, all those things that are super important that you don't have time or people or resources to do in the time that you need it done. We also have a full line of laser welding and laser engraving equipment made here in the United States. So if something goes wrong and you need something, you call us and we just come out and we fix it and we look at it and we help you with it. You're not getting a person with a clipboard that kind of knows what they're talking about. You get the people that are actually building the equipment and showing you how it works. A couple of housekeeping things before we get started. This is live, and we're doing this for you guys to be able to ask questions and share comments, thoughts, all of that. So something we did in the past that we're going to bring back is if you come on, if you type a question in the comment section, whether that's Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, we are going to award a prize to the best question or comment of the day. So make sure you're participating. Don't just be a watcher, be a producer. So come on, say you're here, let us know your name, what company you're from, and we're going to give you a shout out. It's that easy. So please put comments in the comment section so that we can keep the conversation rolling. And if you want to be part of the show at any point, we want to tell your story and just send us an email, tony@alliancelasersales.com, and we'll do that. So that's it for an intro. So I'm excited because we've got Kate on the show today. Kate has the best name for plastics. That's Kate Pellet, which is just so cool. I thought you changed your name for that because it just makes sense and it's fun. Kate is from Classic Molding, and she is a manufacturing engineer. So it's awesome to have her on. I like when we get to have women in manufacturing on because it gives them a voice to tell their story on what's going on. So Kate, tell us a little bit about you and Classic.
Awesome. My name is Kate Pellet. I'm happy to be on the show. I've been watching for about a year now, off and on, so happy to be live and be in with Tony. I actually work with Alliance working at Classic Molding, so that was good. You know, when I first started at this new job 6 months ago, Tony already messaged me, I'm pretty sure my first day, asking for an invite to come in and do a little bit of a pitch. So, I mean, it's been great working at Classic Molding. Like I said, I've been there for 6 months. I'm doing manufacturing engineer, but luckily it's a smaller company, so just being able to wear multiple hats, I've been able to get into scheduling and purchasing and basically doing multiple different things just to help the company, help production. So I've been in, Chicago for about 3 years now, out of college for 4 now, just working and living and being an adult out in the world. So it's been really awesome, especially, getting to networked with different people in Chicago, whether it's, professional or getting to do some of the personal stuff. So it's been awesome.
So how long did you say you've been in the working world?
4 years.
4 years. Okay. So here's how I want to kick it off.
Yeah.
How different is it, the real working world to what they tell you in school?
And it's interesting because even so I started school, 2013 in August, and so basically when I came in, I did something called Leadership Advantage, and so it was Triangle Fraternity, and so they were hosting this 3-day, basically short intro to coming to campus, and so we got to come on and do leadership activities, and so it was a really good way to just come into college feeling like I just had a little bit of a leg up on all the other students. And so they were big on okay, you're a freshman, go out and go to the career fair and just talk to companies and see if you can get an internship. There's low risk, you're a freshman, they don't even expect you to be there, go for it. So the first career fair I went to, actually spoke with a couple different companies, got a couple different interviews, and I actually started with Beaumont that November.
Yep.
And so I basically, like, my whole college career was working. So, like, I really never just did straight college. I was always, like, working in, like, internships, which was really nice because while I was doing, like, my chemistry and physics classes and feeling extremely, like, overwhelmed by how technical and difficult it was, like, I was able to just go to this molding shop and literally, like, cut runners for hours and hours and, like, just do manual labor and kind of just, like, wrap my mind around being in a manufacturing atmosphere.
Sure.
So I think I luckily, like, had a pretty good idea of, like, what the working world would be like when I did graduate. And so especially, like, I did a co-op with Autodesk, so I did actually take, like, the time off from school just to work full time, like, while I was still in. But I think just the act of graduating from school, which for me especially, like, I did 8 semesters, but because of the one co-op, like, I graduated in December instead of like in, you know, June or whatever with my class. And so I think just by, like, spending those 4 years, I think I was just, like, really worn down. Like, it was just such a marathon, like, especially during the summers, like, I was still working and I wasn't exactly, like, taking breaks ever. And so I think just the biggest adjustment was the act of graduating and then going into the working world and just feeling, like, starting off feeling run down, like, already, especially like, I think being, if you can afford it and if you, like, I knew when I left school I had 6 months before my loans started coming in. So I think, like, for, you know, engineers or anybody who went through a challenging college program that, you know, they didn't skate by, they had to, like, kind of work really, really hard and had felt a lot of pressure. I think, you know, I'd really recommend, like, taking those couple of months just to take a break because, like, I just felt like you just can't perform at max when, you know, you're already coming in feeling kind of, like, withdrawn and, like, worn down. So I think that was probably, like, the biggest challenge and things that I, like, would actually hear in performance reviews was just that, like, we need to see more effort, like, we need to see more motivation. And it was just like,
you're like, I'm beat.
Like, I need a break. Like, I feel like I'm, like, worn just to the core. So I think, like, it took me probably a good, like, 2 to 4 years, like, I'm at 4 years now, to just feel refreshed from, like, that lack of sleep, that, like, all of the things I learned and just trying to process all of it. Like, so I think that's the hardest part about being in the job force really was, like, you know, just, like, going into it, it was a really big change. And I think, like, a lot of people find it challenging.
And I think, I mean, what you did that's different than what a lot of students do is you were working the whole time. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of students that maybe they'll get a part-time job, maybe they'll work, and they're doing their school. I mean, a lot of the people I knew, they were barely doing their schoolwork, much less trying to work. There was a lot of PlayStation time, and there was a lot of hanging out. But it wasn't like there weren't that many people that had jobs. If they had jobs, it was at the bar. Like, nobody was working careers yet.
Yeah.
Right? And I remember that my senior year, instead of going somewhere for spring break, that's when I did my interviewing with places.
Nice.
And so my first job was at Ticketmaster. And I went to Ticketmaster, and I got the job at Ticketmaster, and it was great. So when I went back to school, they called and they offered me the job. And I was like, this is awesome. I have my job before I even graduate. So the downside was I would be in class, and the teacher was like, hey, are you going to turn in this project? And I was like, I'm working. Like, I'm working right now. Like, I was doing my work in class. And he was like, well, you going to turn it in? I was like, do I fail if I don't? He's like, no. I was like, then no. Like, mission accomplished. I got the job. Like, I'm in the career world now. And so, like, the last 3 months was like, I can't wait to get out of here so I can work.
Yeah, I felt like even my first semester being invested like $15,000 and knowing, like, if I don't finish college, like, I'm probably not even going to be able to afford this $15,000. Like, that to me the whole time was just like the pressure was at max. Like, it was just like pass all the classes, like, you can't excel in anything, like, you have to pass everything. So I was just like laser focused on that, like, finish line. And even I think, like, walking the stage to graduation, like, we turned our senior project reports in at like Friday at 5, and then Saturday at noon I'm walking across the stage, like, not sure I actually graduated from college. Like, it was just a lot of pressure the whole time. So I think, like, that it's very good being in plastics with a lot of, you know, there's good job placement, but it's definitely not an easy degree to get into or an easy job industry to get into. Gotta know a lot.
I just think it's so funny. That's where I met Vanessa originally. I went back to Western to talk to the students about like.
Where did you go?
Western Illinois.
Oh, okay, go.
And so I would go back and talk to like the senior students and say, okay, you're in school now. This is what you think the real world is like. I'm going to tell you what it's really like, and I'm going to burst your bubble. And it's not all roses. And there's like, if you don't turn in your assignment, it's not the end of the world. If you're late at work, it could be your job. I mean, you can't do that very often. You have to be consistent with what you're doing on a regular basis. And if you don't turn in the work and you're not showing up energized and enthusiastic and ready to go, it's not class. It's work.
Yeah.
And you're representing a business, not just trying to get a diploma, not just a diploma, but it's a much bigger emphasis on things.
Yeah, agreed.
So you're enjoying work. Are you feeling like you can kind of chill a little bit?
Not exactly. I think when I first started the job, being a manufacturing engineer, so basically at my company, Classic Molding, we have been around for maybe 60 years. And so we started out as a mold maker, and then it was called Glow Mold, and then they started, running the molds and having the sampling, and then turned into this production house too. And so when I came on board, basically like Greg, the plant manager, he was still there, but it was his last 2 days. And so he'd been there for, 40 years. And then Bob, who was the mold maker, he was there for 40 years, but he had left maybe like a couple months before I started.
Yep.
And so when I first came on, it was just kind of reinventing kind of the processes and the things at work, because these two powerhouses that were there to do everything now weren't there to do anything. And so all the some things had to be redistributed, like the technical or whatever skills that we had might have like gone away a little bit.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, I was really focused on safety. I think our corporate was just aware that, when changes happen, like safety is going to be the first thing that can kind of fall through the cracks. And so we just wanted to put like a little extra emphasis to make sure like nothing, went wrong with our people while, these changes were happening systemically with the company. And so I was just focused on, like putting lines on the floor and like helping them with like fire extinguishing training and things like that and I was almost looking for work to do, looking for improvements to make.
Sure.
And then when Greg, left my first 2 days, my plant manager, Ernesto, he came on board. And so me and him were just kind of a tag team on, keeping Classic running, keeping orders going out the door. And so I think those first 2 months, they weren't really expecting or asking me to help with those things, but now that I've been there for a couple months, they've kind of let me loose a little bit and have allowed me to get more involved with scheduling the machines and making sure that the things that we need to run the orders are in-house, and I can do purchasing now. So it's just sometimes though can just be like too many things on my plate versus before it was not enough. So my first couple months are feeling different than where I'm at now. But I mean, even over Christmas, I was kind of playing plant manager with like Ernesto being gone, and it was just a lot, especially during Corona. Like we were having an outbreak with Omicron, so I felt like I was basically like running a plant by myself during a pandemic. Like it felt really stressful.
Yeah.
So I think now I'm getting a good feel where, because I think it's dangerous to just take on things, especially like if you don't have the experience. And like that was something I did with purchasing. Like I thought it was something that I could easily manage along with like being a manufacturing engineer. But I'm learning it's just like a different way of thinking,
right.
And just to be in that mindset, like it's almost like two different mindsets, engineering and purchasing. And like I almost have to like switch brains. So to be in purchasing is fine, but then I'm not going to be working on the samples. I'm not going to be like bugging you guys for mold changes. So I think that's where like I just try to prioritize my time so that I am kind of working on those technical things that, I really want to learn about and work
right.
on, and that, other people might not have the like technical experience to do. But yeah, so far it's been pretty busy, but it's awesome. Like I love working for a smaller company. Like I love being able to wear like multiple hats and help out where you see it.
Sure.
And be able to see exactly like what other people are working on and how you can come into play and help others. So it's been really good.
It's good. Has it been a challenge to, like in any of the career spaces, one, to be a woman in manufacturing, two, to be a younger woman in manufacturing? And that's not me being ageist. It's just, You know, a lot of people in this industry we'll call them seasoned, seasoned men who have a way that they want to do things, and have somebody that's fresh into school. They may look and say, listen, you don't know what you're talking about. How has that been? How has your experience been in those two capacities?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Am I one of the youngest people you've had on your podcast so far?
I think so.
Nice.
I think so, yeah.
I do love that. I love being the youngest in the space. It's hard. It's challenging being, you know, kind of the first person to set the path. I think what's nice is there's a lot of women coming up behind me. So like from what I've seen working, it almost feels like there's like one or two women that are older than me, and then by the time it gets like maybe 4 years below, it's starting to get closer to 50-50. Like not there yet, but getting there. And so I think my college experience, it was okay being a woman. There was definitely, especially because I went to Penn State there, and it was an engineering campus basically.
Okay.
So that's where like there's Penn State main campus, you know, obviously such a huge school, like you're gonna have every major. With Barron, it was really engineering focused and nursing. So like the whole, like I knew that with engineering classes, I'd probably be like one of the only women, but I was surprised that like the campus in general was like mostly men. So we'd always call it like the Barron ratio, where there'd be like one woman in a room and like 4 dudes. And so I think that was challenging coming into school. And even when I did that Leadership Advantage program, it was 9 guys and then me. It was like, so I think just when you're looking around the room and you're the only person you see who looks like you just start to doubt yourself. And so I think just being in those engineering classes and feeling like kind of like a woman in a sea, I think that was challenging. But I ended up like starting an engineering sorority. And I think that gave me like the connections and like just even other women who I looked up to who were older than me, smarter than me, saying like they're really struggling with their classes, like they're having a hard time, like they're struggling with the campus, like things like that I think really helped me through college. I would say just like the comments mostly, like I think something that like the men in the industry can, you know, really do to help women is like, I know when I was in school, like they would talk about how like the only reason women were passing the classes is because the professors liked them. Like things like that are just really demotivating when like you're putting in all the hours and people are attributing your success to the way you look or like things like that. So I'd say like that was probably the extent of it in college, was just a little bit more of like comments. I'd say like, just not to get specific, just working, I've had some pretty serious like harassment issues. Like I've had to go to the police and put in reports because like I've actually been like assaulted by someone. So I've had to deal with like.
Don't do that. Listen, if you're listening, don't do that.
Yeah, like it's vicious. So
it's crazy.
I've had the experience of, you know, going to work and reporting it and being told like there's nothing they're going to do, and going to the police and reporting it and being told there's nothing they're going to do. So I would say just, you know, being a man in the industry, you do have the power to help, and like a lot of men really help me. Like, you know, I've been helped by men just as much as I've been hurt by them in this industry. And I think like there's a lot of connecting and a lot of like helping you can do, just even putting in a good word. Like when you see something, say something. Like I've been in a position where like a coworker is talking to me and he puts his hands on my shoulders and he's like, you know, threatening me, and you know, even just something little like my boss looking over and saying like, hey, and you know, just someone else seeing what's happening to you and commenting and making it stop. But that doesn't mean like I haven't felt repercussions at work because I've reported things.
I'm not laughing at what you're saying. I'm laughing because I work with kids. Like on Wednesday nights, I work with kids at our church, and it's like the rule is don't touch anybody. Like it's even more so at work. Like you don't need to touch somebody to get your point across. Like there's never
a reason.
It's never a reason. Like if somebody's grieving, you want to give them a hug, ask, hey, can I give you a hug about this?
Right.
Like don't just act, you know, like, and don't touch people. Just don't touch people. It's that easy, really. I mean, I don't know why people can't understand it.
Yeah, even in just the world of the pandemic, like just shaking hands, like there's just little things that you just never know what's going to affect people. And I just like the fact that I just don't have to personally touch people if I don't want to. Like I'm fine taking handshakes out of the equation. I'll give a good wave, but Not to say like those I'm comfortable with, like would happy to
Yeah.
give you a hug, hello.
See,
but
that's
I want
me. I'm
that
a hugger.
consistent.
So like this whole like, hey, let's do elbows.
Yeah, you're not into it.
Come on. Just like I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that there are people watching. So don't just watch. Put your name in the chat. Tell us what company you're with so that we can say hello and you could win a prize. At this point, you may win a prize just for putting your name in the chat. So.
Oh, hey. You don't even have to do anything.
That's a good thing.
Deal.
That's a good deal. So when you were in school and you started the sorority,
yeah.
How did that look like? I mean, what was your motivation to do that, and how quickly were you able to get some traction?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. So like I said, like I went to school and did that Leadership Advantage program, and that was put on by Triangle, which was an engineering fraternity. And so I asked about an engineering sorority if there was anything, and the guys told me, yeah, there is. You just have to start one. And so I sent out an email to some email that Phi Sigma Rho was under and said, hi, like my name is Kate Pellet. I go to Penn State Barron. I'm a freshman in engineering and I want to start a sorority. What do I need to do? And the start of it was pretty easy. Get 10 people that you know were in your major that qualified for the sorority. And basically we had to come up with a constitution and start as a club on campus. And then this is getting back to 8 years ago. But, it took almost I'd say it took almost like a year for me to get up to 10 people. I was like going to classes, like doing presentations and things like that just to try to get more people on board. And so once I had the 10, which was interesting because it's like, the type of woman who's going to come on board to start an engineering sorority is going to be a very A-type person. So we definitely all had like our idea of what we wanted the sorority to look like.
Sure.
And especially like me being a freshman and there being senior girls, like also putting their opinions out it was hard for me to manage, but luckily like was a really good experience for me to just kind of like own up to people who are older than me and like know more than me. But it was really, I guess, difficult that first year because I was president, I was working, and I was in school. And then we ended up nominating someone else to come in as president for that next year. And so then I was vice president. And so like I think we finally got established as a sorority where we were able to finally like wear letters maybe 2.5 years in.
Okay.
So that was nice. Like I was happy that I kind of started it my freshman year because otherwise like if I
you wouldn't have
started
been able to
it
experience
my
it.
senior year, like I wouldn't have been able to be in it. So I think like by the time we were able to wear letters, then it was kind of like, okay, this ball's like finally rolling. Like I'm not pushing it anymore. Like it's either gonna live or die with me. Like I'm just gonna let it go. So that was like a good act of just like taking it off your like plate and seeing what happened, because I was just really involved with like obviously like the plastic side of things and then like philanthropy. Like I just really like doing volunteering and things like that. And so like I was like, I want to get more into volunteering, but I have to get less into the sorority.
Right.
So I think like it was nice because I started out so heavy, which I think a lot of college students do if they just join one instead of start one. Like it starts out kind of heavy as a freshman, freshman, sophomore, and then you kind of get like more and more out of it. You're mentoring people and you're just not really looking for the same things like you were looking for in like freshman and sophomore year.
It's amazing how that changes, right? Like even just like 1 year, like your perspective on everything changes. So we got a couple people. Audie from Jandler Corp is on. How are you? Nice. Thanks for joining us. And Richard Savage has a question for you. As a manufacturing engineer, are you seeing an increased focus on automation?
Yeah, so my company, we have around like 29 presses and 3 of those have robots on them. And that was one of the first tasks that I was assigned, was to work on how to get more automation, mostly because the tools that we did get, we set up for the automation. We do a lot of like smoke detectors, and so the ones that you see with like a clear lens and then like the speaker housing, we'll mold the clear lens and then we'll use the robot to pick it up and then like place it in so that you can do like the overmolding. Yep. And so the issue that we see is that because those robots are set up on those stations, it's hard to run other jobs on them, because like if it's not set up for the robot, then you have to have an like operator sitting there, and then they're in a cage and it's a fire hazard. So I'd say that's more of the draw right now for us is the safety side of it, and just
Sure.
like trying to get more of the molds that we have automated. But yeah, I think automation is getting more and more popular right now. I think it was like a little bit harder to convince people that the investment's worthwhile, but now that people literally cannot hire enough people, I think
Right.
it's coming into play so much more than it would have like 2 years ago.
So one of his follow-up questions was, do you feel like you and have confidence in the workforce that they have the skills to make automation work?
I think so, especially like obviously the jobs that we are already doing, we have a lot of experience working on those. I think that some of the things that you can do in automation can get really complicated. So I guess it just depends, like, are you looking to put a part in a box, or are you looking for it to assemble something? Like, we actually are a pretty solid assembly house. Like, we really don't sell ourselves on that, but when we do have projects like if you're ever in CVS or Walgreens and you
Yep.
see like lipstick and they have all those pusher trays, like we mold all of those trays. And so to get those to our customer, we have to put basically like springs and pushers, and I've spent like 8 hours a day like making these assemblies just to try to see, like, can you make it 5S? Is this, like safe for people to do like all day, every day? And so I think those are the things that would be like actually way more valuable to automate. But how do you get a robot to like put it in, like hold it, and then like stretch the spring? I think when it's something that like a human can do so simply, but it's so like tedious and it's not really worthwhile, like I think those are the jobs that it would be amazing to get more automation built into. But unfortunately, I think it's so much harder to get like a machine. I listened to a talk about it at the Amerimold when we were there, and it was really interesting. Like, they basically said like the more it takes like the human hand to rotate or like do a second task, like it got just way more expensive in automation. So you just need like one task for the robot to do, and then like the next thing.
I mean,
That's what it feels
that
like.
whole thing is that's the difficulty in teaching a robot, and all of that to me makes me appreciate how awesome the human creation is.
Right.
And how, I mean, we're designed to do all these things and
I know,
be able
like,
to do it all. And it's like,
makes you
like that, right? In
impressed.
order to like pick this piece up and turn it,
Yeah.
you just think about it. Like, to
Exactly.
train a robot to do what I just did is going to take weeks.
Exactly.
And I think sometimes people miss that fact. And I think for us, I think automation is best for those dangerous jobs.
Right.
Where you wouldn't want to put a person in that situation.
Agreed.
But there are people who, they're not skilled yet. I'm not saying they can't be trained to be skillful, but there's people that need jobs. And those jobs are like attach a spring
Right.
and do these things. And sometimes they love those jobs.
Yeah.
For me to sit there and do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again would be totally mind numbing.
See, that to me is like therapeutic, so I was able to do it for 8 hours.
Good for you.
Yeah. I'm like, my engineering brain's getting tired. Can I go out for an hour and like do some assemblies?
Now, did you create games out of it? Like, how many can I get done?
No, pretty much just, I gotta get these done. Like, gotta make these for our customer. They're late. We gotta get them what they need.
Yeah. And some people love doing that. I mean, we've been to plants and people are just happy knocking that stuff out.
Yeah.
And I think if you can get away, like your engineering brain is on, right? You're trying to figure out, how do I make all these changes in the facility? How do I do all this stuff? And you can shut off for an hour.
Yeah.
I get that.
Helps.
I get that a lot.
Yeah, especially because, sometimes I'll just get stuck in my office where maybe I'm working on mold flow, or I'm putting in purchase orders, or something that's like really, mentally challenging, but it's just not physical, and I'm not seeing what's happening in the plant. So I think, like, myself especially, like, I'm really not the type of person to just want to like sit at a desk or sit in the office. Like, I want to go be really involved with like what's happening out on the floor, and if it's at like molding or assembly, like whatever it is, I just want to be involved and know like exactly what's happening and get my eyes on it.
Yeah. You mentioned trade shows before, and we saw each other at Amerimold. It was good. It was a good time.
And then, did we see each other at one more? I think, no, maybe you weren't there, but Michelle was there. It was like one of the
Designed apart.
It wasn't really a conference. It was
Okay.
like I think it was maybe like an AMAB like chapter event.
Okay.
Because you guys had like one of
Yep,
your
AMBA,
equipment. I think
the-
you brought everybody. I think everybody but you was there.
We
was
tend
maybe
to
how it
to
worked.
do a little too much sometimes. We tend
Just
to go
like
overkill.
all of us.
Yeah.
Especially if it's after work, right? You just tell your people, you're like, come on, get out there. We need some names in the industry.
Hey, does anybody want to go to this event where it's free drinks and free dinner?
drinks?
I mean, you got to know your audience.
They're happy to go.
Yeah. So are you guys going to go to PT Expo?
I'm thinking about that one. I'm not sure exactly like what the scope is for people who exhibit at those.
Yeah.
I haven't personally had to be a booth at any of these. When I was in school, when we went, we'd have to work the booth, and that's always an experience, especially because when we were at school, like, you know, some of the guys in molding would just come up to us and talk, so it wasn't bad, but mostly you're just sitting there. But luckily, like the last 4 years or so, you know, just being out in the working world, I've just been able to go to them as, you know, somebody who can use the technology, be a customer of the people who, you know, are the vendors there. So yeah, I love the trade shows. I think they're a really good experience, like being able to network and just see like all the companies that are out there.
We finally committed. We are committed to PT Expo. We will be at PT Expo. There was a little bit of a hurdle in the beginning because we weren't sure what what Illinois' mandates and requirements and everything were going to be and how we were going to be able to play nice with that. But based on what we've been told, we're going to have a 10 by 10 booth there. We're excited because there's going to be plastics people there, not just mold makers. Yeah. So there's going to be plastics people, 3D printing people, supply needs, everything. It sounds like everything is going to be there.
That's good.
In one location. So, you know, we're excited. I like trade shows for this.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
The one-on-one, the interaction, the getting to know people. You know, the floor time is great, but it's like,
yeah, kind of exhausting.
Well, 5 o'clock hits and now you can build real relationships.
Exactly.
You know, it's not, you don't form relationships at the trade show.
Right.
You know, there's so many people. So you take a brochure, you put it in your bag, and then you go home and maybe you'll look at that again.
Or it's all the follow-up emails that come like the 3 weeks after that you're like, oh, actually, yeah, now that you mention it, I am looking for this CAD sorting software.
Right. Or you find the people that just go from booth to booth and they're like, hey, do you have any free stuff?
Yeah.
And you're like,
yeah.
I mean,
I guess.
What do you do?
Yeah.
Like, before I give you this $20 shirt, what do you do? And are you ever going to talk to us again? Or do you just want free stuff to go home with? I mean, that's why I think the real relationships start at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, so like the people that go to the show and then go back to their hotel room and go to sleep.
Don't even know what they're doing.
They're missing out.
But then the trade shows are just so hard because you have to walk the show the next day and then the next day and then the fourth day you're like, I'm not coming. Not showing up. Too many days. You
gotta know time and place. So hopefully that's something like I think I learned a lot of that in college. That was one of my lessons. Is like when enough is enough, and then you pull back, and then you start again.
Yeah, especially during the trade shows, it just seems like you can't go home too early. You know, it's just like it's always beneficial to just stay for one more drink, and then suddenly it's just like, oh great, now I got to be at the trade show at 7:30.
So here's my tips for success with that. If you drink wine. You can walk around with the same glass of wine for hours and nobody expects you to chug it and drink it faster because it's wine.
That makes sense.
Okay. And if you drink like vodka and tonic or something like that, it's clear. It looks like water.
Right.
So you can, at any point, just go get a glass of water with a lime on it and nobody knows any different.
It's interesting.
And then you don't have to go to bed.
You don't have to go to bed?
Well, you don't have to go, like, you don't have to call your night early.
That's
you can
true.
still stay out.
Because you're not drinking.
Yeah, so you have one actual drink, one water with lime, one actual drink,
That's
one water
fine.
with lime, and then you can keep going. Listen, I didn't do that properly at a Maramold. The wine trick.
Oh, dude, you were out the first day.
Yeah, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
The problem was I tried the wine thing, but they just kept filling the same glass. So anytime it got to a certain point, they put more in there.
They're like, let us help you.
Yeah.
You're like, not that much.
They didn't help that much. But I rallied, went out the next day. It was fine.
Yeah. Then you just do it again the next day. That's the hard part, is you have you have a rough day, and then you're like, all right, let's do it again tonight.
And they start so early.
I don't get that. And you have to be there. Like, it's only 3 days. It almost should be like 7 days lax. And like people know that it's part-time.
It should be from like 12 to 3.
Yeah.
That's it. Just give us time to hang out.
And like I think at Amerimold, like it was almost like there was enough vendors that nobody was walking the floor. Like there needs to be some like weird communal spaces that people can just talk and somehow meet.
Yeah, that's
Because I feel like that's where you don't really get that. It was funny because we were having trouble finding labor, of course. Yeah. And so near Carroll Stream where I live.
Yep.
They were doing like a manufacturing fair, but it was like more for like the average worker. And so I was like, I'm gonna go there and try to, like snipe some people and like get some workers like over to Schiller Park. And so like I showed up, but like nobody else showed up. And so I was just in this parking lot like with all these like, and it was kind of cool to see like in Carroll Stream, like just like all the different options. Like I learned we made all the, what are those like kids snacks, like the Lunchables? Like I learned all of the Lunchables in the world are made like in Carroll Stream, Illinois, like little known fact. And so like, but I needed to kill time so that I could see like if more people would show up. So then I just started going booth to booth, and they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, I work at a plastics company. Like I just like I work in the like production."
Yeah.
And so I even had like I even had an experience though where one of the guys was like pretty aggressive with me and was like really trying to make me show what I know. But I was kind of in this like my character, which was just like a regular worker, and like I almost had to like break character and be like, I am an engineer and I have like 4 years of experience. Like you can't talk down to me. But it was really funny because I was just trying to kill time with like the vendors. But there was like maybe 3 or 4 people that did come to the like booths, but I couldn't talk to them because there was no opportunity for the people who came just to see the jobs that were there to talk. So when they asked for feedback about the event, I said it would have been nice to be able to talk to some of the other people who were looking for jobs. Yeah. Even though that's not really the point of the conference.
Sometimes I feel like whether it's a Merimold or IMTS or whatever show it is, that last day tends to be that day where the vendors can go around more and talk
really?
to people.
See, I feel like the last day is always like everybody's packing up.
Well,
like,
that's
nobody
why,
wants
because
to
you can
talk
walk around and be
anybody.
like, "Hey, how are you? Doesn't it suck? There's nobody here right now."
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. We could cut the show one day and.
But that's more when you're also having to take down a table. I don't think the average person who's walking the show would like go that last day and be like, "Oh, I'll bug people who are like taking down their tables."
Right.
Like I bet that's more of the time where the people who do have to stay the whole time manning a booth would be like, "Oh, great, now I can actually get a chance to see what other booths are here."
And that was one of the things that we did. But we usually bring way too many people to these shows because we want people to know who we have working and be able to get to everybody that has a question. And so we would keep like 2 or 3 people in the booth and then have 2 people go walk around and see what was going on and meet people and everything else. So there's all kinds of strategies. And then if you have like Glenn Starkey from Progressive is like the greatest booth supervisor ever.
Really?
He's got people stationed in his booth. Their heads are on a swivel. He's amazing. He's amazing. He's like a tactician with trade shows.
Yeah, because sometimes I do want to talk to a booth and they're not good at like bringing you in, and it's sometimes really awkward to be like, "Hey, like I can't tell just by looking. Like, can you explain to me what you do?" And like obviously that's what they want you to do in theory, but sometimes it's like you don't feel comfortable and you don't feel like they're like bringing you in to do that.
And how many times did you have this where you are walking past a booth and you think, "I might want to talk to that person," but they're just sitting there like looking down on their phone?
Yeah, right.
And sitting at a table, leaning back, not interested, not waiting to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Just like, and then you feel like you're bothering them to ask them about anything.
Which I'm sure they would love for someone to come over and talk to them because they're bored, but their body language is throwing out. Like, please don't talk to me.
Most times
trying to take a break.
We don't even have chairs in our booth because we don't want people to be super cozy. We want people walking around, feeling invited in.
Yeah.
One of the things that, this is tips and tricks for it. We never have a table out in front because a table, a lot of times it's a separator.
Yeah.
And you're already putting up a wall. So it's like us versus them. So we want an open space so that you can just walk right into our space, see what we have, walk around, touch stuff, whatever, because, that table is like, it's a barrier between you and the other person. You got to get up and reach across the table.
Yeah, agreed. Are they doing, what is it, NPE this year? Or is it Antec? It must be an Antec year.
It's so hard for me to keep track because there hasn't been shows.
I'm like looking in the chat for someone to be like, it's Antec.
Somebody tell us. Yeah.
I know, I was waiting for just like
NPE,
the first person to fact check.
Because I think that PT Expo is running the opposite years of NPE.
Interesting.
Because they're trying to be like a smaller, scaled down version of NPE and invite all the same kind of people. Plastic processors, mold makers, material suppliers, all those people. And if you have NPE and PT Expo, it's too much.
Too much. 1 year.
Yeah.
You can't do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I went to the first Antec when I was maybe a sophomore. That's when I met Mercedes for the first time.
Okay.
That was like the first like really good experience I had with like, I did have some good ones, obviously, like meeting women in the industry, but like sitting down at the table is like Mercedes, and then like two of the other women that I've like kept in touch with like the last like 6 years that like we'll see each other at a trade show every once in a while. And like, you know, it was one of those dinner, like more of the formal dinners where like everybody's in the lobby like doing the like drinks, and then you have to go sit down at the tables. And so like obviously all the students just like went and sat at one table, and I was like, I'm literally trying to like meet everybody. So I went and sat down at a table, and it was like, yeah, me, Mercedes, and then two other women, and then maybe like a couple of other men, but like the three of us like women were just like, okay, like we're here together, like this is like, and it was even like Mercedes like first trade show, and it was like my first trade show, so we were like what do we do, like what do we talk about, like what's gonna happen. So that was just really nice to just be able to like connect with people, meet these different people. Like I think I met Jaime, if you know him, in NPE or SPE. But yeah, I think it was funny because for school they let us do a 1 credit project where we'd be able to go present at Antec. And so we ended up doing one that it was putting fillers into thermoset materials, because they were putting currency and wheat into polypropylene, and it actually went kind of okay. And so then they said we should do that with thermosets. So we had to use phenolic, and we were basically like, we had this like one compression molding machine at school, and the mold that was in there was like a plate, like a dinner plate. And so like with compression molding, you know, you just have to like dump the powdered plastic in, and then you let it like push it down, and then it's very technical, very, very high scale. And so we were gonna do like the regular phenolic plates, and phenolic just smells terrible. Like it's really cancerous, I swear. I'm not convinced, nothing happened. And so
if you're phenolic and you listen to this, we're not saying that it causes cancer. This is just
my own personal...
It's a hypothesis that it might, but so does the sun. So, I mean, everything does.
And so, yeah, it was, so then we started adding ground up currency into it, and we were going to check the impact on it. So we did ground up currency and wheat, and we realized like, you shouldn't put those things in plastic. It really takes down the properties. And so it was just like this whole presentation that, or like, you know, you have to do the poster, stand by the poster. Like the whole poster was just us being like, can you put recycled materials into phenolic? Nope, we did it. You don't have to. So that was really funny. Just like go and present something that was just so basic, but it was nice just getting like asked questions by the technical people, because it just like it makes you realize like kind of where you're at and what they know. Because I know one of the guys walked up to us and he was like, so how would you know how much like % of the fillers in the final product, like what would you do, and I was just like, I don't know, like I don't know what I would do. And he was like, you could just burn all of the material and then see like whatever is left over, and I was like, great, like good idea. Like and I think that's the type of people who like do want to like go look at the students' posters, is like to give them a like, oh, did you think about this when you were doing it? But
that was one of the things my brother told me when I started working in the industry is don't try to BS anybody, because they'll play games with you to see what you know. Yeah. Just so they can be like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, because it's interesting, because plastics I feel like is a lot of theory based, where you are kind of being like, well, I think the melt is doing this, so that's why this is happening. But people can tell very quickly if like your theory is just like off the mark. And I think that's what I love about plastics though, is like, you know, a lot of things like me and you could look at the same situation and come to different conclusions, and both of us be right about it. Sure. But in plastics, there's a lot of things where like you can just tell if someone's talking about it. You're like, no, like that's not really what the principles say. Like that's not really exactly like. But it's, I think, harder for people who don't know as much to realize who knows what they're talking about. So it's like up to us to weed each other out and be like, oh no, that guy, he's just BSing. Like he's just talking good talk, but like he does not know how to walk the walk.
We were the first trip I ever went on. So my brother had already told me this, right? Don't try and BS anybody. And I was like, all right. So then I went on a trip across the country trying to sell laser welding machines. And we went and saw Scott Phipps at United Tool and Mold, and I love Scott Phipps. He's now one of my favorite people. But he's a big dude in North Carolina. He's got a big drawl, you know, everything, and he's an awesome guy. And we were there, and this is like a month into my working here. So he's asking me about the machine. Can it do this? Tony, can this machine do this? And I was like, you know, I'm not sure. I'll have to get you an answer. can it do this? Blah. And he asked me like 5 questions. And each time it was like, I think so, but, let me find out from you. And he just looked at me and he says,
you don't know anything.
Do you know anything? You suck at this. Why would they send you here? I'm going to call your dad and tell him you suck at this. And I was like,
fair.
Yeah. You want to go get dinner? And he's like, yeah, let's go get dinner. But, he put me in my place. He showed me that I shouldn't be out on the road unless I know something. And that's fair. And, he was doing it in a fun way. He wasn't being a jerk. And now it's like, now I love Scott.
Yeah. Well, I think it's difficult too because you want to feel like you're providing things to the conversation and you want to put out ideas, theories, and even I think just these last couple of weeks I've realized like being so smart can come with its challenges too. Like you shouldn't be like so technical and so thinking in like, I don't know, such a serious way that it's like tunnel vision, you know, like you're so convinced that you know what's right and you know how to do things. Like I think sometimes honestly like people who don't really understand the full like chemistry of it or whatever can come up with the right solution because they're just like, oh, like in theory I think this is the way it would work.
Right.
And like everything you've learned up to that point might not point in that direction, but I mean, and that's just the thing with diversity. Like you just want people who've been through different experiences so that you can see like different points of views, because you don't want this like the same people coming up with the same ideas and all 8 people saying like, yeah, I agree. And
sometimes I feel like that's a strength I have, not being from the industry. Like, I've only been in the company for 5 years and, we've got mold makers that are here for, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, and they get so stuck in a rut.
And they'll tell me something and I go, okay, let me understand. Let me see if I got it.
Yeah.
And I'll explain it in a way that makes sense to me. And they're like, yeah, you got it perfectly.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I think I can give an out of the box solution that maybe somebody else isn't going to think about because it's so ingrained in this is the way that it's done.
Yeah.
And if I have, like, I can just throw something out. And I usually start with, listen, I don't know what I'm talking about, obviously, but would this work?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's yes, and sometimes it's no, that's stupid.
Yeah.
And that's fine too. But it's an outside perspective for information.
And it just feels like with science, like it should be, okay, this happened and that's the final answer, let's move on. But I mean, I feel like you could see something 5 weeks ago where this happened and it resulted in this. And then a couple weeks later, like that actually, like the technology's changed, like something's different and A does not equal B anymore. And so I think like that's where, when you have people who've been in the industry for 20, 30 years, like, maybe 10 years ago, they realized this doesn't work and they literally tested it. They saw it for themselves, but things have changed since then.
Right.
So like, that's one of the things that like my company now, like our sales guy was just like, oh, I wish you would have been here like with the old regime, because it would have just been so interesting to like hear the different ideas that like you had versus like, and what they thought of your ideas.
Right.
But instead, unfortunately, which I think happens to a lot of companies, like the old regime left and the new regime started and there's no crossover, no kind of lessons learned. It's just like start fresh. Like we did this 40 years ago, you have like more tools, like start now.
And like you said, that's what science is. Science is not like this is it forever. Mm-hmm. It's like that's why you have new textbooks every year.
Yeah,
science
with school, right?
Science changes. It's not a fixed idea.
Exactly.
And if it is, it's probably wrong. Mm-hmm. Because we are constantly improving and developing and finding new things. So how do you know that this is the definitive answer?
Yeah, and I just heard something recently, like, it's kind of like the truth can't be summarized by the existing words. Like, basically, like, it's hard to describe something in the words that we have. Like, any kind of situation. Like, so I think the same thing kind of goes with, like, a technical problem. Like, you can kind of only analyze a problem that you can put words to, that, and I think that's kind of the limiting. It's the dialogue. It's understanding, like, what someone's seeing in the process, and then like that's why I think a picture's worth 1,000 words, especially like in our industry. Like you kind of got to see what's going on. Yeah. And it's just I wish that I feel like our industry can just be really competitive, and I just wish there was more where we were able to work together to find out a lot, because it's not like I feel like other disciplines where there's so many textbooks and so much like information out there of like, okay,
it's experience.
Yeah.
You need the experience side of it.
And you just wish like you could work together, but like it's like, okay, if I have this molding problem and I ask like another molder about it, then this is our competition. Like we can't come to that.
So that's what I mean, we're getting close on time, but that's what I love about the AMBA, the SPE, TMA, organizations like that, where like especially the Chicago chapter. The Chicago chapter of the ANBA is so close, so tight that you can reach out to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm having an issue with this. What would you do?"
Yeah.
And they're willing to help you. You know, what I feel very fortunate because I feel like I have very close industry people. Kyle Cloud up for MSI, Jen from Falcon Plastics, Patricia Miller, Alex Hoffer, Timothy Stoll from Armin. And it's somebody, and those are people that I feel like I can be truly authentic with and call them and say, hey, I'm struggling with this, whether it's a team issue, whether it's how to handle a customer, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And we can actually have a dialogue without it being like, why would I trust your company? Because they can also be vulnerable and open up and tell me what they're going through. And we understand, like, listen, life sucks for people sometimes, and let's get through this together and figure out how we get better. It's not me or you, it's us. It's a combination. It's an alliance of people that are trying to fight for a common goal. And I think this industry by far excels at it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think because my last job was working at a color house, it was just okay, what's the problem? And then you can just take the color out, and then it works perfectly fine. And then you're oh, okay, you're right. Problem's the color. But in other areas, working at a molding shop, we can't necessarily isolate a variable. That's the whole point of it. You're trying to figure out, is it the mold? Is it the material? Is it the process? Is it the design? So I think that's what's nice and I love about finally working at just a shop that molds plastic parts, because if I can bring in a vendor like you guys and you guys solve the problem, that's perfect. I learned something, you guys got the business, perfect, everybody wins.
Right.
So that's what I like about that versus being at a color house. I just felt I didn't have that, because if there was a problem with the color, I can ask another color house, hey, what's wrong with this? You just kind of have to figure it out yourself. And luckily we had Cliff, our owner, was amazing and knew so much about compounding and color and everything. But I really liked working at a color house. Actually, it was cool do you feel you have a good sense for color? Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Tell it's too blue, too yellow, too dark.
Yes.
Yeah, some people, it's really funny. I didn't see it at all when I first started. I'd be that's red. What do you mean it's yellow red? It looks red.
Well, my previous life is graphic design and marketing.
So you got,
So I would go on all the print runs and have to do color matches.
This purple is not,
Yeah, so we'd run the sheets and then do color matches, pull it, add more yellow, add more cyan.
Yes.
Let's change this, move this, check the plates. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Now they don't do that as much because that's whole with plates.
But I mean with I feel it's just more virtual now, right? The color that comes up on the screen has to look a certain way. I mean,
it does.
Yeah. Especially
I'm a color person.
Yeah, it was really interesting, just being able to spend 3 years just looking at colors all day, every day, and just getting a good sense for it, because it's not something I feel you can learn naturally, unless you're an interior designer who just has an love for color. Even just my own clothes, I'm oh, I kind of understand now why people were saying that green and that green. You can't just match those. It's green. It's fine.
Yeah, you've got 4 different greens on.
Yeah.
Do you not see green properly?
I'm this is green? And it's so funny, because then you see people that are colorblind too, and you're like, all right, I'm safe with you. You can't. You don't even know.
That's one of the things that makes me crazy with this camera that I want to change, because sometimes, depending on if you move in further back, it changes the color on the screen slightly. It'll be a little bit more yellow, a little bit more red, and it makes me crazy when we look down.
Hate it.
Yeah.
I know.
That's my big struggle right now.
Because with podcasting, they say the video is the most important part.
Yeah, that's not the content. That's for sure.
No.
Richard Savage was kind enough to let us know that the K Show is this year and NPE is in 2 years. So K Show is out in Germany.
Have you been?
No, we will not be there. We don't service anybody outside the country, except maybe Canada or Mexico.
Have you ever been though?
No.
No. Yeah, I went there while I was still in school. So yeah, we did a little field trip, 10 days in Germany with 20 college students and 3 or 4 professors.
Did you go to the show?
Yeah, we went to the show. It was 3 days, and I think we walked 10,000 steps at least.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's so exhausting. And that show, as a student, I truly did not feel I was supposed to be there. I could tell, they were really there for the sales, and they did not want a student coming up and being what does this blow molding do? What does that do there? They're like, please walk away.
I love your student voice.
What is, can I see that? Can you tell me what that's about? They're like, literally leave. Like,
Yeah.
cause at least working at Classic Molding, when they ask me what I do, hey, and then they're like, oh, I can sell to you. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation. You come up to a booth, you're a student. They're like, yeah, I could kill some time right now, but like we're trying to get some actual business.
Yeah. See, I actually love when the students come
So
because
funny.
I grab my phone and I take pictures. And I'm like, oh yeah, sit at the laser welding machine. This is
Yeah.
how it works. And I take back. I'm like, shh. And I take
Yeah.
pictures of it. I'm like, oh, even students are coming out to Maramold.
Yeah, like
and
the one
just
person you
push
found.
it, just push it out. And I think besides that, it's so important for younger students and generations to understand what this industry is and get them, excited about it and introduced to it in a way that's not this grimy
Yeah.
dungeon industry. I mean, we make amazing things. Everything that you use is made in these companies, and people don't realize it. And I think there's a need to get students to understand, and just young people and parents and just everybody, that what we're doing matters. And it's not just a pen part. It's
Yeah.
medical supplies. It's what did you say? Smoke detectors. It's all those things that are so critical to our lives, and they matter.
Yeah.
And we're making them here. Like, they're not being made overseas and shipped in. There's a reason that we're doing it here, and it holds a lot of value. So if you are a student or a parent, and every manufacturing company is hiring. Don't let them tell you that they're not. How do you get a job? Find a manufacturing area, find an industrial park, knock on the door and say, are you guys hiring?
I would love to cut parts. Like, just let me get some runners.
Like,
That's how you learn.
Can you teach me something? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm a person that's looking for a job and I'm willing to work. Can you fill that position?
Yeah.
I know we can.
Yeah, I know, like, I think it was my freshman year, we probably started off with like 60 people who were like interested in plastics, and then I think I graduated with like 10.
Yeah.
So it was just like between like the challenges, and then just, I think there's a lot of people who just don't want to be that involved in plastics.
Yeah.
Or like they say our like plastics lab at Barron, and they think like, okay, I'm gonna have to be in a manufacturing space, and like maybe like injection molding machines make me uncomfortable, like it's just a little bit like stressful. But a lot of people don't realize it's like, okay, but then you could be a part designer. Like, you got to understand how injection molding machines work, but you don't have to be in the manufacturing environment, like getting dirty, like unless you want to, and you like that side, which I like that
people do.
side.
Some
I do.
people love it.
Yeah, I like half and half.
So we end our show with a prayer. So if anybody's still watching and you have any prayer requests, go ahead, put that in the chat. We do that because it's one of the most positive things that we can do. And there's a lot of things that I can't control on my own, and I need help.
Nice.
So do you have any prayer requests?
No, I'd like to just, I'm personally fine, so, we'll think about all the other people who really need help right now.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of people that need help.
Yeah,
I'm one of them.
I'm good.
So many
Let me
ways.
know.
So many ways.
Try to fulfill it.
All right, so I'm going to pray for us, and then we are going to get out of here. If you put something in the chat, I'll see it. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to come together with Kate. Thank you for bringing her into my life as a person that I can talk to and problem solve with and just work with. We just pray that you would keep everybody that's listening safe, and that you would bless our lives in ways that only you can do. We pray that we would be through this pandemic shortly, but we also realize that you're in control, and it's on your timeline, and it's your will that should be done. So we give it all to you, and we trust you, and it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Kate, thank you for being part of the show. Thank you for jumping in last minute. You guys don't realize this, but as of Monday, we didn't have a guest, and Kate was like, I'll do it. And I'm so glad you did, because it gave me a chance to hear your story, and hopefully you were able to inspire some younger women, younger girls who are, whether they're in grade school or junior high or high school or college, that doesn't matter what somebody says to you, or if you're the only person in the room. Stick through it, work through it, and make an impact on the industry.
Exactly. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
All right, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to be a guest on the show at some point, go ahead and send us an email at tony@alliancelasersales.com. Please, if you found any value in the show, like it, subscribe to it, share it, pass it on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. Sometimes we post stuff there. But just pass it on, because listen, I don't think I have a lot of value to impart and a lot of wisdom, but I know everybody that sits on this side of me usually has a lot of value, and it can be incredibly meaningful to somebody. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Take care, and God bless.